Today, we are diving deep into a legal case that is just a tangled mess of corporate entities, one homeowner, and some paperwork so questionable it's hard to believe. This story really pulls back the curtain on the whole foreclosure machine, and it all revolves around one single contradiction.
Now, this isn't some law school hypothetical. This is the absolute core of the years-long legal fight of a man named Jeremy Bass. And this whole wild ride began not with a lawsuit, but with a really strange request.
So, back in late 2019, the mortgage servicer, Carrington Mortgage Services, comes to Jeremy Bass with this bizarre demand. I mean, it was something so far out of left field that it basically kicked off his entire investigation.
Carrington told Bass he needed to sign a whole stack of papers, including a deed of trust. And get this, they wanted him to backdate them by 7 years. Sign here in 2019, but pretend it's 2012. You know, that's not just unusual, it's a request that is way outside of any standard industry practice.
And this wasn't some casual ask either. Oh no, this was a full-on pressure campaign. They sent him 4 different versions of the documents. They offered him $100 to just sign it. They called him relentlessly, like every other day for months. They even sent a notary to his house who just sat there waiting for 45 minutes. They were desperate to get his signature on those backdated papers.
And you don't have to take my word for how crazy this is. Legal experts confirm it. The general idea is that they were probably trying to retroactively create a valid claim to his property, a security instrument, where one might not have actually existed. They were trying to plug a 7-year-old hole in their own records.
So this super suspicious request is what got Bass thinking. And it's really important to note, he's not just anyone. He's got a 30-year career in digital tech and financial software. So he starts digging into his own property records. And that's when he finds it, a huge and what looks like a fatal flaw in the bank's whole story.
He finds a document dated November 10, 2009. It's called a Letter of Full Reconveyance. Okay, so in plain English, think of this as the ultimate paid-in-full stamp for your mortgage. It's a legally recorded document that says his original 2008 loan was completely paid off. Done. Finished. The lender's claim on his house? Terminated.
This slide right here shows you the problem perfectly. See, normally, when your loan is sold, it's just assigned to a new lender. The debt moves, but that's not what happened here. The paper trail looked like his original loan was paid off completely, and then a brand new second loan was just created out of thin air. This shatters the chain of title, the property's legal history, and creates this massive contradiction.
And here's where the story just doesn't add up. Bass had an FHA loan, and federal rules would have made it pretty much impossible for him to get 2 huge FHA loans at the same time, especially since he just barely qualified for the first one. So the bank's paperwork was describing a situation that wasn't just weird, it was probably illegal under federal housing regulations.
So Bass keeps digging, and what he finds next, well, it takes his situation from being just a one-off mistake to being part of a potential pattern. He finds a nearly identical case that had already been decided by the Idaho Supreme Court.
I mean, just look at this. The similarities are absolutely staggering. This other case, Countrywide versus Sheets, involved the exact same bank. The paid-in-full letter was signed by the very same person. It was notarized by the same notary. It all went down in the same county within the same 24-hour window as Bass's transaction. This wasn't just similar, it was a carbon copy.
Now, in that Sheets case, Bank of America's whole defense was that the paid-in-full letter was just a mistake, a clerical error. Well, that created a massive legal problem for them. There's a principle called judicial estoppel, which basically says you can't argue one thing in court and then turn around and argue the exact opposite in another case. They can't claim the document was a mistake in the Sheets case and then claim a virtually identical one was totally valid in Bass's case.
Okay, so the backdating scheme completely fails. Carrington can't get Bass to sign. So what do? They pivot. They start using the financial stress of the COVID-19 pandemic and the CARES Act forbearance program as a new and honestly a much more powerful kind of leverage.
And this is where things get really disturbing. The CARES Act was clear. The maximum forbearance period was 18 months. But Bass was kept in forbearance for a full 24 months, a whole 6 months longer than the law allowed. And trust me, this wasn't some act of kindness. It just allowed the amount he supposedly owed to swell to an impossible number.
And here was the trap they'd set. After letting that debt balloon, they hit him with an ultimatum. Either come up with over $50,000 right now, in cash,
or sign this new loan modification. This whole sign or we foreclose move looks an awful lot like a manufactured default. It seems designed to force him into signing new papers that would just wash away all those messy historical paperwork problems from 2009.
Bass refused to sign. He held his ground, and the foreclosure moved forward. But then, in the courtroom, the bank's own guy, the trustee who was literally handling the foreclosure, made a critical, and for them, an absolutely devastating admission.
Right there, in open court, the trustee says that the 2009 Letter of Full Reconveyance, the document saying the original loan was paid in full, was, and I quote, valid and correctly done. He basically just confirmed Bass's entire argument for him.
And that admission created a legal paradox that they just could not escape. Think about it. If the paid-in-full document was valid, which their own guy just admitted it was, then on what possible legal grounds are they trying to foreclose? By saying that reconveyance was legit, the trustee basically blew up the entire legal foundation for his own case.
And what happens next is, well, maybe not so surprising. A short time after making this incredibly damaging statement in court, the trustee, Mr. Newell, was no longer with the law firm. The timing certainly suggests his testimony created some serious complications for his client's case.
And you gotta remember, this whole case isn't happening in a vacuum. It fits right into a well-documented history of mortgage misconduct by Bank of America, especially after the 2008 financial crisis. We're talking about a pattern that led to tens of billions of dollars in settlements for practices that sound eerily familiar.
In the end, the Jeremy Bass case just raises these huge questions about property rights, corporate accountability, and whether we can even trust the documents that our homes depend on. It shows you the incredible impact one determined person can have when they just decide to pull on a single suspicious thread. It really makes you wonder, what else is out there, just waiting to be untangled?